So, so the word spirit and spiritualism, what do those two terms mean to you?
Well, this is one of the big differences between Scotland and America. I mean, in America, spiritualism gets used in church after church after church. In Scotland, well, actually not just Scotland, in the UK, spiritualism is a recognised religion in its own right. Now, that doesn't mean to say it's copyright. I mean, other churches do use the word spirit and spiritualism, but in Scotland or UK, spiritualism is a recognised religion in its own right.
So how does that translate to your own personal beliefs? Don't you find it a little unusual?
Certainly when I come to the States and I start talking about spiritualist churches, to be blunt, people don't know what I'm talking about. So, yeah. I mean, again, it goes back into culture. I mean, although it's not a Scottish law, it's a UK law, it all started in Scotland with a Scottish medium. I mean, basically, if you go back to 1955, up to that point, spiritualism was actually illegal, or rather, witchcraft, as it was called, was illegal. There was a very famous medium who gave some messages during World War II of ships, sailors from ships that had died, had sunk. The government hadn't released information about those ships, and they had to find some way to shut her up and stop her giving that information. The investigator, as being a potential spy, couldn't find any evidence of that. So they charged her under the Witchcraft Act and locked her up for 3 years to keep her out of public view. And then after the war, 1955, Churchill gets elected Prime Minister. Rumour has it that he was a spiritualist. He was into spiritualism himself. There's no direct proof that he was responsible for that law, but the first year of his new government, an MP brought in an act of parliament that made spiritualism a recognised religion by law and allowed me to act as a medium.
Wow. So what was the woman's name?
Helen Duncan.
Didn't you do a blog post on her a while back?
Yeah, it's a discussion about whether she was fraudulent or not.
What did you determine?
That she was actually partially fraudulent. She did two things. She did what you and I would recognise as mental mediumship, and she was very good at that. I mean, obviously, look at the evidence she gave of the ships. I'm not disputing that she wasn't a good medium in that sense, but she did physical mediumship. She used to have white plasma coming out of her mouth. She was filmed and photographs were taken of her doing this. And she produced like hats and bits of uniform of sailors that had died. She was investigated, photographs were taken, and I'm sorry, but there's just too much evidence that the physical stuff that she was doing was quite literally fraudulent trickery. And that demeaned the real evidence that she was giving, which I think is quite sad. So you've got two camps of people that follow her. You've got people that denounce her as proof that mediumship doesn't work. And you've got the other camp, the sort of spiritualists that basically worship the ground she walks on because of the evidence that she gave of the ships. But unfortunately, what she did with the physical mediumship was fraudulent. You can't avoid that conclusion.